Hello everyone, David here, MixBus TV. I hope you guys are having a great day. Today I'm answering your questions. Next one, Alan King 6. Hi David, what's your best advice for those who produce, mix and master by themselves to achieve a professional final result? You know my answer to this. It's don't produce, mix and master yourself. That's my best advice. But I understand many people don't have a choice. So I'll try to be as useful as possible here. The first thing, and I promise I'm not pitching my services, but I say this because I see the results, is once you're done producing and you are either halfway mixing or starting a mix or you're done with mixing, get a consultation from someone who does this for a living. It won't cost you much, and I promise you, even just have someone else's perspective, it will simply open up your mind and it will make you look and listen at your track with a fresh perspective, a different perspective and a fresh perspective, which are two different things. That will help you tremendously. The second advice is keep in mind, be aware of the fact that you're gonna be tired, that you're gonna get used to the mistakes and the things that sound wonky in your mix because you've been listening to it for so long. It will happen. You need to be aware of it. Don't wonder if it will happen or not. It will happen. You have to know and you have to be aware that you don't have a fresh perspective, that you're tired, that you're not objective anymore. And because it's your song, you are emotionally attached to it. So for example, there are gonna be certain sounds that maybe you worked so much and so long on them, but they mean nothing in the mix. They mean nothing to the listener, they only mean something to you. So sometimes people get lost, people who do everything by themselves get lost and spend so much time trying to fit every single thing that they did, every single sound that they want to put in the song while they're mixing, that obviously many times that's not possible, and it's also useless many times, that they just get lost and they over process and to try to fit everything and to try to have the listener paying attention to all the amazing things that they did in the song. It doesn't work that way, right? You have to build a tank, that's how I see it, that survive everything out there, survive playing in the shittiest media, phones, Bluetooth speakers. Your song will be listened to from 2 rooms away. It'll be listened in the worst car stereo in the world, where the guy set the EQ in unfathomable ways. So your song and your mix has to survive all that and still be good. It's crazy to me because sometimes people say, oh, why do you use all this gear? Why do we bother even mixing or having a good mix if my song will be listened to this, right? It's because it's gonna be listened to this that you need all that. It's because your music will be abused, stepped on, spit on, and it will go through hell before getting to the audience. That's why you need the best mix and mastering possible, because it needs to survive all the abuse. It's just building a car. If you build cars, you can't expect the owners and the drivers to drive it like it's a piece of glass or to never drive it in the rain. Like, imagine that. No, you need to build a car that is meant to be operated in the rain, in the snow, in mud, in any condition for the car to run and still make sense for people to buy it. So yeah, beside this short digression, the other thing is, of course, take your time. Try to take days off between producing, mixing, and mastering, which it will help, but some people are under the impression that that's all it takes. That, for example, if you produce a song and then you wait a week and then you mix it, you have the same fresh perspective as a mix engineer that hears the song for the first time. That will never happen. It will never happen. Especially if it's your song, especially if you wrote it and produced it, or even if you just produced it and someone else wrote it. it will never happen that you have the same fresh perspective. And also, of course, the experience of someone who does that and only that for a living. Of course, there's many artists out there and many producers who are also mix engineer. But guys, these are people, and me including, who've been doing this for 20 years, who actually do this for a living. And I don't want to be obnoxious by repeating that. I repeat that because there's a reason that many people, I think, miss, and when they hear something like that, this line, they think, oh, like, who the fuck do you think you are? It's because if that's the case, it means that hundreds of clients, of people who make music in different genres, have different expectations, have different backgrounds, listen to different music, have accepted your work, which is so different than mixing or mastering your own stuff, because you don't have anybody else to answer to. Right? You don't have someone else that has to judge your work. It's you. You don't have their girlfriend having something to say about it, or their best friend, or the other guy that doesn't know anything about the music, and it's like maybe a hi-fi guy, and his car is set up like in the worst possible way, and he said like, oh, it's too much low end. You don't have all these problems that really teach you how to make a mix translate, because until you don't have the friend of the client who has the subs way too high or the Twitter way too bright in his car telling you, hey, my friend told me this and I want to fix it. Well, guess what? You need to fix it, because all the other professional mixes don't do that. So that means in many cases for home studio people, that means most likely your monitoring setup, it doesn't tell you all the truth, and you have a null, or you're missing some frequencies, and in that car they pop out too much. And now what you're gonna do? You have to fix it. So that's why it's so much different. But yeah, take as much time as you can. And most important, this is probably the most important thing. Because you're doing everything yourself, especially when you go from mixing to mastering, keep in mind that you don't necessarily have to process things another time, because you mixed it. When I master my mixes, unless is a specific case in which I purposely leave something to mastering, it could be for many reasons, which maybe I should do a video about it. My mastering on my mixes the processing is very minimal. It's very minimal. And by very minimal, it doesn't mean that it's easy, because any mix, even if you have to bring it to level, let's say you have the perfect mix and you just have to bring it to level. That alone is a task, because when you bring it to level, especially if it's a high level, the balance is gonna go. And so you have to either preventively touch things so that when you bring it up, it still sound balanced like it was before the mastering, or you have to adjust things after, because at a certain loudness and at a certain density, some things come up. Maybe the effects on the sides came up, and which is what happens more often than not. Maybe the mid-range gets a little too punchy and a little too biting. So keeping the perfect mix perfect after mastering, even if it's just bringing up the level, is a task on its own. It's not easy. But what I was saying is, just because you change a project and you go from mixing to mastering, if you're doing everything yourself, your processing on the mastering stage should be extremely minimal. Otherwise, you have the mix. It's you. It's still you, still your gear, still your room, still your speakers, still your skills, and still your experience. So changing a project and calling mastering ain't gonna change anything.
Hands on my neck, hands grip my throat. Lift me up, man, take control. Heart is so gone.